Welcome back, everybody. So this is going to be the watch list for Monday, November 3rd. Hard to believe that we are into the last 2 months of the year. So a couple things to think about as we enter in November and December is typical overall trading volume is going to start to decline, most likely significantly, unless we get the government reopened and a whole slew of data starts forthcoming either to the positive or to the negative. Okay, that will attract people that are sitting on the sidelines to jump in and try to catch this rally higher or to sell on the news if it doesn't come in as anticipated, right? So a lot of fund managers, hedge fund managers, so on and so forth, they already know what they're up on a year-to-date basis. And if they're up a fairly decent amount, they're not going to want to risk that performance before year end. So we'll see if we get a chase higher, but just looking at the overall market, with us having a lot of tech news behind us from last week, the market did okay, but in general, it kind of sold off on the news, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news. So some things that we want to watch for next week is we'll see if we get the PMI and ISM manufacturing that's supposed to come out for October. That will be Monday morning, 9:45 and 10 o'clock, so we'll keep an eye on that. We do have quite a bit of Fed governors talking, which I never like to hear because you never know what they're going to say or how the media is going to press them with future rate cuts. Now, last week, Jerome Powell said that the December rate cut is not a slam dunk, right? They don't have any more data to go on with the government shut down. So the number you're going to want to watch is ADP employment numbers, which are going to be on Wednesday. And then we'll see what the services PMI and ISM services come in on Wednesday. So providing that those get reported. But other than that, jobless claims, U.S. productivity, wholesale inventories, the U.S. unemployment report, hourly wages, that is all on hold. And even if the government does reopen, I don't think that you're going to see those numbers relatively soon. So we'll have to wait and see. We do have consumer spending that we're going to want to be aware of, as well as consumer credit on Friday, November 7th. Let's take a look from an earnings perspective. What do we have going on here? Some fairly big names that we're going to want to be cognizant of. Primarily on Monday is going to be Palantir, so we'll want to keep an eye on that from an overall tech perspective. Then we're going to have some more retail names with Uber, Shopify, Spotify. We're also going to have the chips, so we're going to have AMD and Supermicro Computer. I'm going to cover those later on in the presentation. And then we're going to have some more retail restaurants, McDonald's. This one will be an interesting one to keep an eye on as well, because the restaurants that have announced have typically not done too well. Then some outliers, Robinhood, as well as Snap. So I'm going to look at those, and we'll see what we can come up with from an overall strategy perspective. But right now, what has been the winning solution is let the company announce and then just go ahead and trade the activity from that point forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the overall ETFs. So you can see from this past week, and I'm going to just go out to a daily time frame here. And again, with all big tech earnings over the last couple of days, we are not making a new all-time high. Okay, so the all-time high was back here on Wednesday. And so Wednesday we did have some big tech earnings, right, with Meta, with Google, with Microsoft, and then we had Thursday come into play with Amazon and Apple, and then definitely different bifurcated results as to how the market either bought those stocks up or sold them off. And we're going to look at them on an individual basis, but we are not making a new all-time high off of those tech earnings. Now, a lot of question that's coming into play is the AI spend, and it has been monumental with a lot of the names, but the question is, if they spend the money, are they going to be able to get the ROI that the market is actually looking for? So again, ran up everything into big tech earnings. They didn't disappoint, but I would say that it wasn't enough for a broadening of the rally to continue. And that's the problem we're seeing, is that the top 10 names are controlling 40% of the overall market. And therefore, some of the breath is starting to get exhausted. So looking at SPY, I think we got to hold this 621.28. If not, go short into the gap fill. Now, this is the interesting part too. I would have thought, and they tried really hard to fill this gap. Remember, we only do a gap on a daily basis. It's the only place that we chart it. But they tried, and they did originally push it down, right? Because the gap initially on the daily was a lot larger, right? The gap originally, when it was created, was all the way up here to all the way down here. Okay, so they already filled half the gap. Typically speaking, when they get halfway through on a daily basis, it will normally push all the way to the bottom of the gap and close it. Well, why didn't that happen? Well, the problem was we just had too many tech earnings on these 2 days, right? We had Microsoft, and we had, the big names, and then we had Apple and Amazon. We also had Google here. We had Meta here, and then the market just kept bidding it up, so the gap did not fill. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at this gap on a lower time frame, right, I'm going to have to reduce the size of it. So this candle low while the market opened was 679.25. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce this here to 679.25. Okay, and so we now have a revised gap, kind of just a small gap below. Nothing that I think is going to act like a huge magnet because the gap is only about 75 basis points. We do have another larger gap down below that we're going to want to keep an eye on to see, do they eventually come to fill this if we have weakening market data. So keeping this on a higher time frame, you kind of see how we bounced off the pre-market pretty much low here, and this is what has been holding, and then we get below it, and then we continually keep pushing higher. So when you're doing your charting, right, I'm looking at this on a couple time frames. I am looking at it on a daily, I'm looking at it on a 4-hour, and I'm looking at it on a 1-hour. But when we do look at the overall supply and demand, and this has been something that I've been, paying even closer attention to with extended trading hours versus real, or regular. So when you watch me trade live, I've been using the regular, okay? Because the extended, all-time highs is not enough volume to pretty much support. So some of you might be asking, well, where did this 681.28 come from? And, right here, this candle body low, this candle body high, and we're pretty darn close to the wick. So I know there's a fair amount of liquidity. Now, what I can also see is, right, we have sellers up here, but I don't have any really heavy buyers until down here back at this 666 level, right? It left everybody in the dark. So if I'm going to play puts, I want to see a fair amount of black space. But when I am charting on a extended hour time frame, and then I'm going back and looking to see on the regular, is there anything else to be noted? So let's take a look at QQQ. Right now, again, this pivot here, we moved up, tech earnings, right? This was the overall Amazon and Apple really pushed the market higher come post-close on Thursday, and then Friday, for the most part, sold into the broader market. Now, we are below my level of 629.28, so again, I do think that puts could be relevant. Again, the market's not making new all-time highs, but keep an eye on, again, the regular trading hours. We do have a fair amount of buyers here, but if we can get past these buyers and get into this gap, we have a huge gap down below, but we need overall tech to actually weaken, okay? So those are my levels for SPY and QQQ. Let's look at the individual names. Apple, for those of you that were trading live with me, did take a losing trade on Friday, which, again, it was a trade that I would take over and over and over again. What happened with Apple post-earnings? I mean, they ran the thing up over 4%, okay? And then in the pre-market, they sold it down a bit. And then what happened is on the market open, they literally just heavily sold into it. Now, some of you were able to get the call trade that I called out here at 269, right? And able to take it up to 272. But for whatever reason, while they were buying all of tech across the board, on Friday, on the open, the only one they were selling was Apple. So is this a sign that Apple has peaked out? It's probably a fairly good case. unless they step in for some unknown reason and start to buy this up higher. Okay. Really wasn't anything notable, right? Other than Berkshire sold about 30 million Apple shares in Q3. So that was something that is now out there that will weigh on the stock, is that Warren has now the largest stockpile of cash in history. And then also the Warren Buffett indicator says that the market has never been this much overvalued. It's actually more overvalued than the dot-com bubble, and it's more overvalued than before we went into COVID. So I think, right, everybody's really, really nervous buying at these valuations to say, is this sustainable? My personal bias is the answer is no, they're not. I mean, and nobody's going to keep buying at all-time highs and be left holding the bag. And you can see exactly how that happens. So the other hard part is, right, you don't want to fight strength. And when everything is green and only one stock is red, the likelihood that that continues is very low from a probability perspective, okay? So this is Apple. Let's go ahead and take a look at, they did the exact same thing with Google, which was interesting. Google was the exact same thing. On earnings, okay, here was earnings over here for Google. They ran it up really nice in the pre-market, and then after, it comes right back down, right? We're pretty much not quite to where it closed before earnings. We're off by about $6, $7, but we do have a gap fill to the downside. So this thing, again, going into earnings was just running and running and running. But as you can see, right, nothing goes up in perpetuity forever. And we're going to get a bit of a pullback. So we can watch this. You can see that this was the pre-market high. Okay, and then again, sold into it. Now, conversely, with Microsoft, let's take a look at them. Again, earnings, right? Nice pop up, heavy sell. Okay, just gone, erased all of that earnings. That was a huge win, buying it post-market, and then actually buy the rumor, sell the news. And that's what was happening, going into earnings. Buy the rumor, sell the news. Okay, so we're going to want to watch this one right here at this 517. I don't have any trades that I like on this one. Contracts are expensive, and buyers and sellers are pretty much balanced, but you can see my levels for this. So kind of keep an eye on this 517. We could come down to 513, ultimately back down to 506. Now, the one that did not fare well on earnings was Meta, right? It created this huge gap up above. Remember, gaps are only created on a daily time frame. So if you come up here, you'll see where the candle closed, where the candle wicked to. You have this huge drop, right? This was trading close to $800. I did do a fib on the daily from the low to the high to see where might this bounce. So for me, I would be interested in possibly taking a call trade somewhere in the golden zone. Okay, first is going to be right around this 622, if not the top of the gap fill. But if we get more weakness, look for them to fill this gap. And then I think that this is definitely a place you pick up some shares, probably for a longer term hold at $600. But that's about 8 or 9% lower than where we closed on Friday. So will they let it come down this low? Time will tell. And then if you were to look at this on an overall RSI perspective, it is trading at one of the lower valuations that Meta has ever traded at. And what spooked it was the amount of spend that Zuckerberg said they are going to leverage on AI come 2026, 2027. And the street did not like that because they can't see that the spend is going to translate into revenue. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at Tesla. Tesla's been kind of an anomaly as well. Back here above this 450 level, a lot of chop. Again, for me, wait for it to pull down and close this gap here for it to ultimately run higher. You can trade this on a daily basis. It's been kind of a little less predictable to some extent because when the market is ripping higher, Tesla's selling off, and when the market's coming down, Tesla's going up. So it has definitely been a bit of an anomaly here, but we do have solid price levels to trade off of. So keep an eye on these, right? 444, good bounce level right down here. We tested this twice. 439. But for me, I'd like to see this come back down to 400, which is a good 10% lower than where it's trading as of right now. And again, after earnings, so what did they do? They sold it off, and then all of a sudden just buying it right back up. So we are clearly, bifurcated from an overall investor approach on this one. Let's go ahead and take a look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA, the hard part with this one is they don't report for an entire another week. But I do have a good price level on this one, pretty much being 200. It pushed all the way up to 212. We came back down to 202. So it's down about 5% from its all-time highs. I think if we break this 202, you could see some more weakness back down to 195 and back down to 188. I wouldn't anticipate that because I think, again, same thing, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news. Jensen Huang has been very visible and vocal in the investment community, touting the CHIPS Act, its relationship now with Palantir, its investment in drawing a blank cell phone company. You guys will be able to name it right before I do. And then OpenAI partnerships, so on and so forth. So again, would not necessarily like puts on this unless we get an overall weakening market below 200. And you can see here that we really don't have any buyers below that 200 level. So use your supply and demand indicator for confirmation. Nokia, that's the name I was looking for. I knew it would come to me. Same thing with AMD. We are buyers and sellers, pretty much fairly balanced, so I don't like anything. I do like puts up here at 260, calls down here at 253. I know it's a wide range, and you could drop an interim level in here and just kind of trade off the fibs, right? If you wanted to, that's probably my best recommendation. If you were just to do even from Friday, right, take a pivot high to the pivot low, and you could actually see what the market did. Rejected right in the golden zone. So see if it can hold that or reclaim it to keep moving higher. If not, I think that we'll get a pullback to 253, and you could definitely look for a bounce there. Let's take a look at Intel, and then I'm going to look at one more chip maker. So we have a nice gap up here. Interestingly, the market pushed right to the bottom of the gap. And again, this was on the daily charts, and then it sold off. So we are now back in a downtrend. Bounce area right here, 39.35. So keep this one on your radar as well. Again, if we get good momentum, but we drop below 39.35, then definitely, again, use the supply and demand indicator to your advantage and buy your puts. Okay, we don't have any buyers sitting below that level. SMCI is going to be announcing earnings this week. This one I have a decent trend line on that I would keep your eye on, okay, and that we need to kind of break above this. So you'll see that we're coming into this wedge here. This is, again, on a 4-hour extended. You can see the price levels where we are holding this $50.20 throughout the week. Okay, let me just make that a little bit better. Bounce here, bounce here, bounce here. If we can break above this, 62.36, or at least back to the top of the trend, right? Where we initially started to break down, 59.01. So keep this on your radar. I think this could be a good one. Again, going into earnings, if chips still have some momentum, but don't do anything until you break out, retest, and actually see if we could go higher. Or at least that's my overall advice. Palantir is going to announce Monday. This one I have nothing on, right? This is a hard one. It's at all-time highs. You just be gambling to say, well, I'm going to take calls, and you be gambling to say I'm going to take puts, because we just don't know how this is going to move. Now, mind you, again, the partnership with NVIDIA is what gave this a catalyst to get above $200. So probably, I'd say, don't fight the trend. Let it announce earnings Monday after the market close, and then let's look at it on Tuesday. Okay. Another one that reported last week that I called out, that I took a couple bounce trades on, was PayPal. PayPal, again, same exact thing, guys, right? Earnings, insane growth, 15%. Then what do they do over the next 2 days? Sold it all off, right? Just they beat earnings. They have a deal with OpenAI to be one of the payment provider gateways. They did better than expected. Currency headwinds are what the market didn't like. But 67.92, if we pull back to this for some weakness, I think you could go long. If we get below 66.50, then definitely consider some puts. But this did not behave well off of earnings. So this one is kind of overall concerning. DraftKings, I'm going to call this one out. I do have an equity position in this one. Way worse than what I have expected. I'm down, I think, 12%. But obviously, I'm going to hold through earnings, right? This stock was just at $50, okay, back here on September 25th. And then the predictions market and companies that are getting into the predictions business is what fueled this sell-off. I mean, look at this volume where everybody just got scared. I wish that earnings would have been 2 weeks earlier. It's not, because we probably could have held 32. But I am long on this. I know Kathy Wood also took a big position on DraftKings. So we'll see what's going to happen with the overall, again, World Series, right? There was a ton of betting that probably happened. And will that be a pull through for revenue and utilization? So again, this one, I might even add a little bit more equity. I'm not worried about it longer term, right? If we take a look at this on a daily time frame basis, clearly, we're holding a solid level here. If we get below this, then I would exit. But you can see even up here at the top, let me go ahead and flag these just so we have these. And this is a great example, guys, of a head and shoulders, right? Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then we had the sell down. But again, this was after COVID. And this is when COVID occurred, right? So this is when everybody was sitting home, betting and gambling. But we're in a pretty well-defined channel here between 30 and $50. So again, we were at $50 in March, sold down all the way to where we're at now in August, moved all the way back here up in February 25. We came back down in April, then we moved back up, right? So my bias is going to be to the upside and not to the downside. So keep an eye on DraftKings. Some others that are going to be announcing, Shopify, again, this is going to be a double top up here. So if we go out to a monthly time frame, you could see it was here back in November of 21. Think about that, 4 years ago, okay? Is this a double top, and are they able to actually move higher? And then look at what it did all the way ever since. I mean, went from 173 all the way down to $40, straight back up. Okay, this one again has earnings that's going to be coming up. I believe, let's see, what day is this one? On Shopify, if I'm not mistaken, is Tuesday morning. It is. Okay, so this one, if you're holding it, sell some out of the money covered calls. If you're not holding a position, then I would probably wait. Or if you want to play a lotto, if you want to just do a lotto, do a put trade, right? Or sell a upside call spread. It's small position size, more so than anything. Pfizer has earnings coming out as well this week. I did not highlight that one earlier, but we're going to have that we're going to keep an eye on. Now, this thing has just been beaten down so many times, and now they're in a lawsuit battle with Novo Nordisk. Okay, so around their Maestra. Again, it's all over. These companies are all fighting over weight loss drugs. I mean, it's literally crazy what we are seeing nowadays. But this thing, it's just been somewhat in a consolidation on a slight uptrend. Nothing, magical or fantastic. Current, RFK Jr., in charge of, the FDA and everything else, isn't really done any of these companies a great justice, if you will. But if you break below the trend line, then that would be something that you would probably say, okay, I need to, get out of this trade or get out of this position. But you can see how, 24, 28, and again, earnings, let earnings come out, and let's see what they do with Pfizer. A couple of the other ones, Robinhood is going to be announcing it had a huge day on Friday, as did MicroStrategy, right, with Bitcoin. So this thing, 137 all the way up to 150. I do know it has a price target of 200 on this thing. Again, I think what you do on this one, let them announce earnings, see what it does, but this thing has been a rocket ship, okay? Same thing with Coinbase. If you watch what was happening with Coin, we got the same thing, but 153.58 for puts up here at the top is how I would play this. Bounce at 137.13. Let's look at Coin since I mentioned it. Again, we had earnings, good earnings, okay, beat on both the top and bottom line, but no exponential real price movement one direction or the other. So a lot of consolidation, kind of a status quo around this 330, 350 price level. If we get some weakening in this one, again, watching the coin market, right, as to what's going on with Bitcoin, Solana, so on and so forth, you could wait and then take some calls, right? If we get weakening, take your calls down here at 334.43. That's how I would do that. Again, but I don't want to be shorting into this. Look at all these buyers, right? If we get below 290, go ahead, take puts all day long, right? Makes more sense. Or get below 300, psychological levels. But right now, don't be shorting into strength like this. I just don't think that it makes really good sense. And then the last one I want to cover with you is going to be McDonald's. We've been watching the restaurants all announce. It's been brutal for a lot of them. Chipotle just decimated on earnings. Same thing with a lot of the restaurant companies. People are just saying these cost of food is just insane. I can't eat out. I'm going to eat at home more often. Now, McDonald's is going to be a hard one, right? Because they got the value meals. It's got, all kinds of, greasy, cheap food, for lack of better terminology. I'm not trying to hate on McDonald's, but I'm just going to leave it there. So I'll shut up while I can. But if we break below 297.15, definitely think puts. Keep an eye on this though, right? Because we are going to be running on this trend line. Okay, so I'm going to take it from here and we're going to pick it up right here. Okay, so we kind of need to break the level, I would say, and break the trend. Again, they do have earnings coming out. So this one, I might take a put vertical spread. And if I do that, I will go ahead and alert that in my channel. But just based upon what all the other restaurants are doing, I think people are, definitely pulling back. But you can see on this daily, right, holding, we're moving up, holding, we're moving up. On a daily also, if you take a look at where we're at on the EMAs, they are just rolling over, okay? So the 9 and the 21 pretty much just turned on Friday. And again, they have earnings coming up on Wednesday. So the other thing you can do too, I think if you want, I don't know that they're going to really blow the numbers out of the water, but sell an upside call spread, right? Sell a 311, maybe buy this pivot high, the 319. Okay, so that's something else that you can definitely take a look at to say, I don't necessarily want to buy puts, but maybe I want to buy, sell upside calls and then collect the premium. But wow, we covered a lot this morning. Anyways, remember, volume is dropping, size down on your positions, have more patience. When you have a holiday week like Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, the volume is really, really, really low those weeks, okay? And you get very erratic price movement. So be cognizant of that, be cautious. There's no reason to be, risking your gains for the year going into the year end to give them back. I mean, I'm not giving back my gains this year. I'm keeping them, right? And then I'm going to start out 2026 really, really strong, right? This has been a great year for us, trading options. I think next year will be equally astounding. So with that, everybody, if you need the supply and demand indicator, it's in the email list, or just comment here on this video and I'll attach the link. And if there's anything that I could ever do, feel free to reach out. So with that, have a phenomenal trading week, and I will talk to you all soon. Take care.